In mainland China, making meth doesn't get you prison. It gets you a needle. When a drug lord is pulled from the wreckage of his own factory after a raid and handed to the narcotics unit, he has two options: cooperate fully or die on schedule. He chooses to cooperate. But as the operation deepens, one question lingers. Is he actually helping bring down his partners, or using the unit to survive long enough to protect them? Before we dive in, subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell icon so you never miss our latest movie recaps. Now, let's see how one desperate deal turns into a deadly game where nobody can trust anyone. The film opens with Timmy Choi, a mid-level meth manufacturer, barely surviving an explosion at his secret lab. The blast kills his wife and her brothers. Covered in severe chemical burns and foaming at the mouth, Choi drives down a rural highway, ignoring his ringing phone until he loses consciousness and crashes his car into the front of a crowded restaurant. At a highway toll booth on the outskirts of Tianjin, a bus slows to a stop and Captain Zhang Lei's narcotics unit moves in from every side. Zhang has been riding the bus undercover. His team floods the vehicle and pulls the passengers off one by one. They are drug mules, men and women who swallow sealed packages of methamphetamine, board public transport, and trust themselves to carry the product past the checkpoint without incident. Zhang's officers take the mules to a nearby hospital, where the drugs are extracted under police supervision. The process is slow and humiliating, but Zhang's team documents everything. When one of the mules lashes out, accusing Zhang of betrayal and threatening him, Zhang slams him against the wall and forces him to finish the job. Honglei is the head of a narcotics unit in Tianjin, a major port city where drugs move as easily as cargo. His team tracks suspects across the city through surveillance feeds and coordinated fieldwork. At the same hospital, Choi is brought in after the crash. Zhang notices the smell of meth on him immediately and posts an officer to watch him, then tracks down the doctor who treated him and gets the location where he was found. At the crash site, Zhang searches Choi's car and recovers his phone. Back at headquarters, his team works to identify Choi and map his connections, pulling city camera footage to trace his movements before the crash. While Zhang checks the phone's call log, a private number rings in, but he lets it go unanswered. Not long after, Zhang's team spots Choi's associates transporting meth ingredients across the city in a large van. While his officers keep eyes on them, Zhang retraces Choi's route and discovers the wrecked factory, with Choi's wife and her brothers still lying dead inside. He photographs the scene and begins collecting evidence. Back at the hospital, Choi's burns are treated and his condition stabilized. He wakes under police watch, quickly takes stock of the situation, and decides he has no intention of staying put. The moment his guard steps into the corridor to deal with the disturbance, Choi slips out of the room. He moves quietly through the hospital, hides behind a door as officers sweep the hallway, snatches a surgical knife from a tray, and blends in with the staff. He almost makes it out, but Zhang spots him and gives chase. Zhang catches up to him in the morgue, where Choi is lying motionless among the corpses. Hoping to avoid detection, he drags him back to headquarters. At the same time, Yang Xiaobei, one of Zhang's sharpest officers, tracks Choi's associates from her monitor and sends Xiang's field team to intercept their van. One of the men inside notices Xiang's vehicle and immediately reaches for his gun. Zhang trails them from a distance in his own car. He contacts another unit that has been tracking the truck across several provinces, and they confirm that it is carrying raw meth ingredients linked to a supplier known only as Uncle Bill Lee, a figure so elusive that even other criminal networks do not know his true identity. Zhang tells them to stand down and lets his own team take over. Then he checks Choi's phone and sees that one of the men in the truck has just called it. Realizing the timing matters more than the pursuit, he turns back to headquarters and orders Xiang to keep tailing the van. Inside the interrogation room, Choi's importance becomes clear. He's not a low-level cook, but a major producer with multiple labs, distribution lines, and cross-border ties to organized crime. Under Chinese law, manufacturing at that scale carries an automatic death sentence. Choi knows it. With no real way out, he offers Zhang everything in exchange for life imprisonment instead of execution. Names, locations, contacts, codes, the entire structure of the network. More importantly, he says he can still complete the meth delivery to Uncle Bill without raising suspicion. Zhang listens in silence, then agrees. What follows is a partnership built on mutual necessity, with both men watching each other carefully, fully aware of what the other would do the moment the balance shifts. Choi needs Zhang's protection to stay alive long enough to remain useful. Zhang needs Choi's access to reach the people above him, men who have stayed invisible despite months of surveillance. Choi resumes business as usual, while Zhang steps in as one of his dealers. Two names sit at the center of the network. The first is Brother Haha, a port owner whose fishing fleet and dock operations serve as the syndicate's main distribution channel, moving products to Japan, Korea, and beyond. He gets his nickname from a habit no one can ignore. He laughs constantly and for no clear reason, making him hard to read. He is not the man at the top, but he is the gatekeeper. Above him is Uncle Bill, the supplier whose true identity Zhang still has not confirmed. And the only way to reach Uncle Bill is through Haha. With Zhang's team positioned around the meeting site in case anything goes wrong, Choi arranges the first introduction. He presents Zhang as Chang, Uncle Bill's representative and a major supplier looking to move products through Haha's port network. Inside a hotel room secured on all sides, Haha greets Choi with his usual booming laugh and an enthusiastic hug. He tries to welcome Zhang the same way, but Zhang barely reacts, carrying himself like a man who came strictly for business. They get straight to the meeting, while Haha boasts about his port, his operation, and how much product he moves without leaving a trace. Zhang's team records everything through a hidden camera disguised as a wallet. At one point, a server sets a bowl of soup in front of Zhang, nudging the wallet just enough to push Haha out of frame. Choi notices immediately and, without drawing attention, slides it back into position. A moment later, Haha picks it up out of curiosity, glances at it, and sets it back down, suspecting nothing. Taking that as his cue, Zhang quietly leaves. Choi promises Haha they will meet again, and the meeting ends without incident. However, the meeting is about more than gathering evidence. By the time it is over, Zhang has studied Haha closely, his posture, his laugh, the rhythm of his speech, and now has enough to imitate him. At his side is Yang Xiaobei, who plays Haha's wife for the operation. Together, they walk into a hotel meeting with the real Chang, and Zhang delivers a flawless imitation of Haha, convincing enough to raise no suspicion. When Chang pushes further and offers him cocaine, Zhang takes it and reacts exactly the way Haha would. Outside, the surveillance team covers every angle, feeding Zhang live support through earpieces, hidden cameras, and officers tracking every face and word in real time. The act holds. Zhang successfully secures a meeting with Uncle Bill, though the cocaine leaves him badly shaken and forces him to spend time recovering before he can get back on his feet. Once he does, he questions Choi about a gesture he made toward Chang during the meeting. Choi explains that Chang had started pressing him too hard, and he was only trying to ease the pressure. He reminds Zhang that he has cooperated the entire time and expects that to matter. Zhang does not argue, but his expression makes it clear he is not fully convinced. The team moves quickly. They board a train to Herzo, where Choi's factory is located, to meet the men transporting the raw materials. Choi goes in wired, carrying a concealed recorder that feeds everything back to Zhang's team as he moves through the facility. The factory is run by two deaf-mute brothers known as Senior Dumb and Junior Dumb, men who have worked for Choi for years and understand him with almost wordless precision. They read every room through gesture and expression, and their silence only makes them more watchful. Both are physically capable and deeply suspicious of outsiders. Choi moves through the factory with Zhang at his side, planting recording devices while carefully managing the brothers' attention. To lower their guard, he tells them about his wife's death, giving them something personal and believable to focus on. At the same time, two officers who have been tailing a truck loaded with chemical precursors across several provinces finally track it to Tianjin. The truck leads them to a second factory, another meth lab Choi has been operating separately from the one that exploded. Choi then takes Zhang there as well. Once the raw materials are unloaded, the men who delivered them head back to Uncle Bill. A few members of Zhang's team quietly pick up the tale. The next morning, Zhang, Choi, and the rest of the unit set out to finally meet Uncle Bill. But the operation suddenly shifts. Without warning, Uncle Bill's representative calls Choi and changes the meeting location while they are already on the road. Everyone adjusts on the fly and stays in character. Still posing as Haha, Jang rolls down his window and casually waves toward Uncle Bill's passing car. In response, Uncle Bill's people send over a box of Cuban cigars as a gesture of goodwill and postpone the main meeting until they reach the port. Jang and his team immediately adapt, coordinating with the real Haha while the shipment is prepared at Choi's factory. That afternoon, the entire team moves to Haha's port for the cash pickup. While Choi keeps Haha occupied, Jang's officers spread through the building and quietly eliminate his bodyguards one by one. Haha offers Choi food, but Choi refuses. There is no time to waste. Instead, Haha asks him to reassure Chang and Uncle Bill that the shipment will move the moment it reaches the port. Choi agrees. Within minutes, most of Haha's men are either dead or in custody. Haha and his wife are taken as well, but the operation is only half finished. At the same time, a second raid is already underway at Choi's factory. That raid runs into immediate trouble. Someone tips off the Dumb brothers before the exits can be sealed. The brothers escape through a hidden tunnel beneath the factory floor, a route absent from every blueprint Zhang's team had. A firefight breaks out in the chaos, and several officers are killed. Xiaobei reaches Zhang with the update. Zhang confronts Choi on the spot and demands to know why he never mentioned the tunnel. Choi insists he knew nothing about it, but Zhang does not buy it. He orders his men to take Choi back to headquarters, where he will be processed and face the death penalty for his crimes. Choi knows exactly what that means. Desperate to stay alive, he begs for one more chance to prove he is still useful. Then he gives up the one piece of information he has been protecting since the deal began. Uncle Bill is not one man, but a shared identity used by 7 Hong Kong gang bosses who run the operation together. Choi admits he kept this from Zhang because 2 of those 7 are family. One is his brother, and another is his godfather. He protected them for as long as he could. But now, with Zhang's patience gone and execution looming over him, he finally gives them up. Zhang regroups with his team and shifts the operation once again. He returns to the port to inspect the layout for himself and make sure there are no more surprises waiting for them. Then he goes back in as Haha for another round of meetings, this time with Choi beside him, to identify each of the 7 bosses as they arrive. Uncle Bill's people still want proof. Before committing to the deal, they need to see that Haha's port can actually handle the volume being promised. Staying fully in character, Zhang orders the Tianjin fishing fleet out to sea one vessel at a time until every boat has cleared the dock. The show is convincing enough. Uncle Bill's people are satisfied. To formalize the agreement, the syndicate's bosses hold a vote of confidence over closed-circuit walkie-talkies, each man giving his answer from a different location. One by one, the responses come through quickly and without hesitation, until the final voice. According to Choi, this is the real strategist of the cartel, the man who thinks further ahead than the rest. He lets the silence drag on, pauses to take a photo of himself at the port, then finally casts his vote. With that, the deal is approved. The negotiations continue that night in a nightclub, loud, crowded, and expensive, with dancers performing on stage while the syndicate conducts business at the tables. In the middle of the meeting, Zhang suddenly turns on Uncle Bill's representative and accuses him of being a police informant. He sells the paranoia so convincingly that the atmosphere collapses on the spot. The 7 bosses immediately drag the confrontation down to the parking garage, where they face Zhang directly and begin defending themselves. In the process, they name each other, lay out their relationships, and put their identities on record without realizing it. Every face is captured and names confirmed. After weeks of maneuvering, the operation finally has what it came for. The bosses disperse to celebrate, convinced the deal is still intact. The next morning, Choi takes the wheel. He leads the 7 bosses and their entourage through Tianjin toward what they believe is the port, the final handoff that will lock the deal in place. The convoy moves through the city with the relaxed confidence of men who think the hard part is over. Then Choi suddenly turns off course and brings the entire procession to a stop in front of a primary school, just as parents are walking their children through the gates. He steps out of the car, reaches under his jacket, and rips out the wire. Holding it up for everyone to see, he tells the bosses exactly what it is and what it means. They are immediately surrounded. The moment Choi's feed goes dead, Xiaobei calls in special forces while Zhang orders his men to seal every exit and move in carefully. But Choi is not finished. He slams Xiaobei down with his car, then makes a run for it and dives into one of the school buses. What follows is total chaos. A gunfight erupts outside the school with children still on the grounds. Zhang's team is pinned. They can't return fire freely without risking innocent lives. The gangsters have no such restraint. All they care about is escaping. The 7 bosses choose violence over surrender. Gunfire erupts from every direction as Zhang and his officers close in. The shootout is fast, brutal, and costly, wiping out most of the gangsters and several officers with them. In the middle of the chaos, Choi makes his move. He starts the school bus, swings the door open just as the surviving bosses run toward it, then locks them out at the last second and drives off, using them as bait. Left exposed in the open, the remaining bosses are gunned down while Zhang and his team shift their focus to Choi. He does not get far. Elsewhere in the city, the Dumb brothers are trying to escape Tianjin before the police lockdown seals every route. Their car suddenly collides with Choi's school bus, sending both vehicles spinning off course and leaving everyone inside battered and disoriented. The brothers climb out, see Choi, and immediately understand what happened. He sold them out. Without a word, they open fire in the middle of the street and Choi fires back. Zhang arrives at the scene wounded but still standing. Seeing the net closing around him, Choi tries one last time to bargain his way out. The Dumb brothers shoot him before he can even finish, but he still pushes forward toward Zhang. Before Choi can make another run for it, Zhang cuffs one of his wrists to a nearby vehicle. The Dumb brothers fight like men with nothing left to lose, forcing Zhang's depleted team into a desperate close-quarters battle. In the end, both brothers are killed. With the gunfire finally dying down, Choi manages to slip the cuff loose. He finds a gun in the wreckage and moves through the aftermath with cold efficiency, shooting every officer still left standing. Zhang is hit and collapses, but in the final seconds before losing consciousness, Zhang reaches out, grabs the dangling cuff, snaps the other end around Choi's leg, and locks it in place. He dies there, handcuffed to Timmy Choi. SWAT arrives soon after and finds Choi still trapped beside Zhang's body. This time, there is no deal left to make. Choi is sentenced to death. Even at the end, he falls back on the only tactic he's ever trusted, offering more names, more connections, in exchange for his life. This time, no one listens. Choi is executed by lethal injection, and that's the end of Drug War, a tense crime thriller, where every deal comes with a price, and in the end, nobody truly wins. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss our next movie recap. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.